Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Listen, Learn, and Love. This episode is hosted by my guest host and friend, Tanya Miller. Tanya Miller is a licensed clinical social worker, active Latter-day Saint, and married mother of 4. Tanya Miller was on episode 501, where she spoke about healing from church-generated trauma, an episode, according to SoundCloud, with over 60,000 listens. Tanya is also the author of a chapter addressing the same topic in my third book, Listen, Learn, and Love, Building the Good Ship Zion. I trust Tanya because of her level of maturity and extensive clinical experience to be an excellent guest host. As I mentioned in my solo episode, episode 731, my emotional gas tank is low, and I've decided to cut back and generally host only LGBTQ focused episodes. I knew that meant there were other brave stories from amazing people, the real heroes of this podcast, that might not be shared, and was sad about that. However, Tanya and I reconnected shortly after I posted that episode and explored the possibility of having her guest hosts, so these stories could still be shared and delivered on this platform. And I'm really grateful to have Tanya as a guest host.
Hello, listeners, and thank you, Richard. I feel very humble about this undertaking, and I am so grateful for your trust. I don't take that lightly, especially the trust that every courageous guest offers when they participate in this process. I am so hopeful that the good work accomplished already by Listen, Learn, and Love will continue to expand, and that the gentle spirit that has always accompanied Richard's podcasts can be maintained. Listeners, welcome to this episode of Listen, Learn, and Love. I'm Tanya Miller, and I am with Michelle and Steve Shaw today. Michelle and Steve, they live in the Seattle area. They are active in the church. They have 4 children, and we are going to have a conversation about how to support people with disabilities in the church. Michelle is a teacher of blind and low vision learners and also a special education teacher, and Steve is a trial lawyer. Both of them have significant professional experience working with people with a variety of disabilities. They also have lived experience in that some of their children have been diagnosed with varying levels of disability and challenge. So Michelle and Steve, thank you so much for being with me tonight.
Thank you.
I will also add real fast, Michelle is my cousin. So if you pick up on that, we'll just get it out there right now. She's one of my very favorite people. In fact, I believe I am required to call her my favorite cousin.
You are.
Per
You're
her
absolutely
request. So, yes. So Michelle, Steve, I'm so glad to be with you.
Thank you.
Just tell us about you and your family.
That's that. Yeah. Yeah. Go. So yes, we have 4 children. Our oldest is 25. We so excited to have him. We had waited a long time to have him, and so excited to be parents and to see all the growth that he was making, but realize that he wasn't making the same. He was making the milestones, but he wasn't making the same progress as other children, and so we sought out help and understanding, and tried to figure out what was going on. And through the years, we discovered that that he has lesions on his brain, on both sides of his brain, that hamper his communication and has left him quite significantly disabled. And then, but we have twins, one of which also has how would you describe him?
He's a little less impacted, and he I'm not sure how to. This is. We were talking about this before we started recording. It's hard to like define or describe the challenges your kids have sometimes, but he's much more capable, I think, than our oldest, but has some kind of attention issues and has a hard time kind of
Socially.
socially making relationships, and also difficulty with some of his the more practical things that he works on, for trying to hold a job and things like that. So
So executive function kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a so. And I like, Steve, that you used the word impacted, and Michelle, you also used it, and I think that's such a useful concept to sort of guide all of us actually in this. Not only in this conversation, but for listeners to think about um, this idea that people are impacted to varying degrees by things that are visible or invisible, and that if we can operate from the perspective that everyone is impacted by something, and some people are impacted by what we would label disabilities to varying degrees, I think that's just like a nice way to kind of um, level the playing field. We're all just here doing the best we can. Some days I don't always do my best in theory. The rest of you are. No, we show up, right? And everyone does it. And so I think to conceptualize what we're going to talk about is how we show up and how we can help others feel safe showing up too.
Well, I think to piggyback on what you just said, it being impacted and showing up and all those things, I think sometimes we don't think about what our attitudes and our actions do for those who are impacted more so than others. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think that is kind of what the crux of this conversation is that it is what we do and say and how our attitude is has an impact on those that are impacted, I guess. Those
Oh,
that
love it. Yes, our impact on those that are impacted
are good or
by
for
disability.
bad.
Yeah. Well, and listeners, I will add too. And I've talked about this in previous podcasts, but I have one of my kids is on the autistic spectrum, and then we've got a lot of ADHD running around and literally running around in our family. And so I get to kind of connect with Michelle and Steve in that way too. And so yeah, I know what they're describing in terms of recognizing the impact that we all have on each other.
For sure.
yeah, it's funny so much of our lives, initially with our children, we're seeing them not meet our expectations. And the transition that's occurred has it probably been more in us than it has in them. And that it's those expectations and the expectations that other people probably have about them when they're not met causes some of the challenges that we face. Because our kids themselves are fine. Like when we talk about them being impacted, there's nothing wrong with them. I mean, from their perspective,
Yeah.
I'm fine. This is me. This is who I am and the way I am. But the way our world is fashioned, if you don't fit within the framework or the way people expect you to be, then that's when the other is created, or that's when you fall outside those lines, and then that kind of is the point, the point at which we sometimes feel frustration as those who are trying to guide our children, because first of all, they didn't meet our expectations, and then we realized we had to realign ours. But that doesn't mean that we're going to be able to have the other people that they interact with realign theirs. So it's the negotiation of how do we present or support our kids in that environment to make them feel loved, accepted, successful, fulfilled, whatever word you want to use.
I love it. Can I use the word safe? Because I don't know that it is really possible to experience the kind of the full range of things that technically we would think that attending a church might offer if we aren't feeling safe, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree it's providing an environment where you know that you can kind of relax. They're good. They're okay. They're at a place where they're going to be loved and accepted, and yeah, all those things. Safe is a perfect word for that.
So has that been your experience and your kids' experiences? Have your children been safe at church? And in those not just like on Sunday, but anything, associated with church activities or callings or other kind of extensions that way.
I think it's sometimes, and then sometimes not. And I think it goes back to that expectation of what we belong to a church that's very steeped in tradition and expectation of how someone should behave and how they should react to a situation or in class and in primary and young men's and young women's or whatever, or in sacrament meeting. And that I just, so, and sometimes when those expectations aren't met, that's where the uncomfortableness kind of comes up, either with them or, and then making us uncomfortable and our children uncomfortable.
Yeah. My son that's on the spectrum, he doesn't, he's in his 20s and doesn't come to church very often. He's really positive about church in general, but he said to me once, this was years ago. He said, Mom, I think that I make the people at church feel uncomfortable. And I said, you're probably right. Like our family does that. We may stand out in some different ways. And I said, however, if you wanted to come, like, I hope you will come, and that wouldn't be the reason not to, because I would be fine with everyone else maybe feeling a little bit of discomfort, so that they might know what it feels like to be you, because I know that you don't feel comfortable there either, because you sense that others don't quite know what to do or say, that you feel kind of different. And so I thought that was just so insightful of him, to just say, and in that way that someone on the spectrum can just point out what is happening in the most unencumbered sort of way.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
pretty
And and probably nailed it. Like I had lots of thoughts about what you just said, but
let's hear all of them.
well, the one being of him not going to church anymore. Like he's uncomfortable. He feels like he knows he's making other people feel uncomfortable, and therefore he's not there, right? And if we look around at the, we've talked about before, the disability rate in America, in the United States, is 15%. I mean, that's just, it's every state, throughout nationwide. And yet, if you look around in our wards and states, that is not the case. And that's because they're not there.
Right.
And because it gets to be too uncomfortable, whether for different various reasons.
Well, yeah, and to be fair, just real quick, like, his not going to church isn't, I'm not saying that it is anyone else's sort of fault, right?
Exactly.
There are multiple kind of factors involved. However, he absolutely, I think, could identify that one particular factor really with a lot of clarity and wisdom. So,
well, in the same regard, our children are not going to church right now. I mean, they went through primary, they went through young men's and young women's, they attended seminary. Well, our oldest didn't, but you know, they did all the things, they checked all the boxes, and yet it's not a place that they feel safe, that they feel that there's
Don't belong.
a place that they are not involved.
Well, I think I give an example, and it's because I think that our son's experience is similar to yours, our second son's, because like he doesn't mind going to church. I mean, when he goes, he wants to participate.
Yeah.
And he'll want to act, like, for example, let's say we're in, like, I don't know, elders quorum or Sunday school or something like that, and he'll have an answer to give, but he wants to answer every question and he wants to be heard on every question. And a lot of the things he has to offer, some of them are incredibly insightful and would be awesome to add to the class, but just as many would be a little off kilter, kind of a little
They don't know the Sunday school answers, do they?
Yeah, well, it's so interesting because they're so honest and so good about. Again, I'm amazed sometimes at the level of insight that he has, and you probably experienced with your son too, but at the same time, people don't know what to do with that. Sometimes they will participate in a way where it kind of puts people off a little bit, not like inappropriately, but just where it like they don't get it, they don't follow, or maybe they feel like it just isn't following with the vein of the discussion. And so I think it's that the uncomfortableness that's created causes a separation where it's like, I'm not sure how to respond to this person. And so I think what ends up happening, at least for our son's case, is that there's just not a lot of engagement with him. It's like you sit, you listen to him, and you go, okay, all right, well, he gave his answer, so now let's go on with the lesson. And I think that lack of engagement with other people, without having people to connect with while he's at church, is one of the reasons where he's ambivalent, about going, where he's like, okay, I could go if you want, but I think for all of us, we go to church because there's value that we get out of it. We get out of, we do our own cost benefit analysis. Say, I go to church because there's a value that I extract from the effort that I put into going. And they'll go and they'll put in, their kind of effort, the way that they kind of meet that experience, but it doesn't really give back to them. And I think that's for us as parents, we're constantly looking for the ways that church attendance and participating in all the church programs will have a value for them and make them and motivate them. I mean, like when I teach my teachers quorum class, my hope is that I'm going to give them something that will make them want to come to church, regardless of whether their parents make them, where they're going to find value in their membership. They're going to find value in their social relationships that they make at church. And both of those things are kind of stymied or kind of blocked a little bit for the son that I'm talking about, especially because he's not finding commonality. He's not finding that place where he plugs in to the congregation as a whole. Where do I fit in? Where's my place here? And how do I both give so that I can also feel like I'm a part of this group, and also what's the value I'm extracting from this? I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, keep going. And Michelle, I wanted to hear the rest of what you what had come up for you when I was describing what my son had said.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, about being feeling uncomfortable and not
feeling uncomfortable. And I Steve and I have been talking about how, that I just starting as a young family, you have all these things that you wish your children were doing. You go to church and you see them, give talks and participate in primary in a certain way and walk reverently down the hall and all the things, and sit quietly in church. And when it doesn't happen, it's heartbreaking and it's disappointing, and just I think there's a lot of pressure on parents. It's like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my child? This is hard. And we've had a lot of people in our lives, in our church life, that have been willing to step in and help but it's been, for the most part, it's been our responsibility. It's been our responsibility to support the kids in whatever way. And I appreciate Steve. Steve's been there every moment, every youth activity, all of the kids' classes, to make sure that they have all the opportunities to adapt the activities so that they can participate in some way that makes them feel good. That's a huge blessing. But and we've had, I don't know, I'm running about the mouth. But
No, what I thought about when Michelle was just talking was there have been people throughout our kids' experience with church. Some people have just been unbelievably amazing. They have just this magic about them where they can reach in and connect with our kids in a way that's very to us, very exactly what we hope. You know, you're like, oh yeah, they had such a good experience because this person went out of their way to go above and beyond what their calling was. And like there was a person involved in Young Men's with our oldest son who, when there was a youth talent show, you know, our son wasn't going to be able to do a talent, but he made him the MC and he stood by
cool.
next to him and fed him the lines while our son very happily and proudly, you know, read the lines and told jokes and people laughed and he just ate it up. And, you know, that you're like, oh, I want that to happen all the time. And it can't happen all the time because that person moves and then you've got somebody else who can't do that or doesn't do that. And then you're kind of like disappointed. Or we've had, for example, like a scoutmaster who, for one of our sons, was like, he was fantastic. He was motivating. You know, he kind of knew exactly how to make him,
He pushed him.
kind of get him to respond. And then with our other son, he really didn't he really didn't get along with our other son,
Oh,
and
interesting.
that made it difficult. And it wasn't his fault. You know, again, fault's the wrong word to use. It's his skill set was great for one of our kids and was not great for the other. And
Mhm.
so, and that's the whole thing is our kids require a special skill set and they're not kind of, you know, the interchangeable, you know, anybody can work with our kids and our kids are going to have a good experience. You almost have to have almost like a specialist or somebody who has a greater awareness or a greater capacity in a certain way for our kids to be able to get, you know, that the same benefit out of their participation that maybe somebody who's neurotypical would. You know, just coming and doing the activity for some kids is great and they connect and it's all good. For our kids, it requires kind of a more specialized interaction. I don't know. Again, I feel like I'm not making sense, but
No, you're doing great. I like how you pointed out too that we're dealing, right. Our conversation really has been centered on disabilities that I think would technically be described as invisible, even though you and I know that there's ways that it is not always invisible, right? The way that, you know, it shows up behaviorally and emotionally, right? And developmentally. However, we're not talking about someone who, you know, has physical disabilities. And so the assumptions are often just that, like, the kids should be able to figure out how we're doing this. And unfortunately, that's not always the case, as we know. And is that kind of what you were referring to?
yeah, and I just wanted to follow up. Exactly, it is. And what I was going to follow up on what Michelle was talking about is that when oftentimes we feel like, of course, as parents, we're supposed to be supporting our children, right? We're supposed to be helping them connect with all the opportunities that they have at church. And of course, we're supposed to be going, you know, supporting them in activities. But you get to a point, I think, when you have kids who aren't neurotypical or like the other kids at church, however you want to describe that, where you feel like you're always there. You're always the one who's like,
Yeah.
you become like a appendage to the program because it's like your kid can't participate without you. And then you start to resent it a little bit because you're like, I, I have to go to every Wednesday activity. I have to go on every camp out. I have to be, you know, and you feel like, can there be a little more, you know, help from the other side so that, you know, we can meet in the middle on that or whatever. I think what happens is sometimes you just get exhausted because you feel like
Well, and
I'm
I think
trying
the
and
kids
trying
get
and
tired of it too. They're like, I'm so sick of my parent being at everything. Can I ever go anywhere without them? Right.
good
And
point.
so yeah, it's it's taxing on the family for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you do it because ultimately you hope that it's going to have the desired effect of bringing them closer to the gospel. And again, allowing them to get the same value out of it that we do. And that's something else Michelle and I have talked about is that, of course, we had a particular experience with the gospel growing up, but our kids' experience is much different.
Yeah.
And we're learning and trying to understand where they fit in, where they meet the gospel in their lives, because it's different than the way we
Yeah.
did.
Maybe we can, what if we differentiate a little bit between the gospel and the church? Because the gospel is obviously, it meets us wherever we are. But I think culturally, there are just some built-in challenges around any kind of divergence from kind of a cultural norm.
Yeah,
And
you make
I
a good
think
point. That's an important distinction.
so talk about that a little bit, like and for your kids, what you've seen in terms of their capacity to enjoy the gospel, compared to their capacity to feel kind of integrated and like they belong at church.
So our oldest he he loves Jesus. he loves, he loves the scriptures. He's always, he signs every birthday card like God loves you, and he just really
He's right.
really he's cute. But I and he really I think from a very young age we felt he was very connected to the gospel. He took the teachings in while he prayed. He would listen and apply what he was, well, in his own way, in his little way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So but it when it came for him, and we were not going to, when it came, he was about 7 years old when we decided, his baptism is coming up, what are we going to do about that? And we had decided, only if he wants to, will we, because we are of the opinion that he has already met those challenges that we are now facing, right? I didn't say that right, but he will be exalted. There you go.
Right.
So baptism is not essential for him.
Right.
So but he was very much like, I want to be baptized. He would count down he goes, okay, so first Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, and then Valentine's Day, and then my birthday, and then I get baptized. Like and it was every holiday he kept counting down to it. And so we're like, okay, this is important to him. We're gonna do that. And when we talked about it with the bishop, he was like, nope. This is
That
not.
surprises me. I mean, Christ was baptized, so
Yeah, and his reasonings were like,
wait, right?
does he can he pray? Does he know how to say, to repent and all these things? And those are the requirements to get baptized. And I think fortunately he was very open to how we felt about it, what Ethan felt. Ethan, and at that time, Ethan probably he was very limited. He still is a man of few words, is what we call it. But he wasn't talking very much at all. I mean, they used to count how many words he'd say a day at school as one of his goals, right? So, so it wouldn't be of any surprise that the bishop would say, well, he can't pray, but not that is one of the requirements for baptism. But he was open to listening to the state president, his opinion, which was that he should be baptized. He was able to listen to us and our feelings and our thoughts and our considerations, as well as Ethan's. And it was an amazing event. So I think a lot of people have been open to learning like in that case, like they know that our children are coming up into their class and they have like, tell us how we can accommodate them more, how we can integrate them. What do they like? What do they dislike? What are ways for that they can participate in a meaningful way? We've been very blessed in that regard, I would say. Definitely. And it isn't sometimes, but and in those cases, I think our children and we have felt loved, and that burden has been lifted. But sometimes when we haven't had that understanding, and we go pick up our kids and they have the laundry list of everything they did wrong or unexpected that day, and it gets so heavy and uncomfortable. I'm saying uncomfortable, but it's dark.
No, it's more than that. I mean, and the child is hearing the list too, and
Yes.
and so not only have they been responded to in a way that is confusing to them, especially if we're talking like younger kids, that they're trying to participate and show and be in the classroom the way that it's just that the best they know how, and then to learn maybe not directly but overhearing a list of things that they didn't get right. And you and I know that by the time children with any kind of neurodivergent kind of experiences reach early teens, the self-esteem is pretty low, unfortunately. And so yeah, that can be a really, I mean, it's not only that kind of that walk of shame for the parent of like, well,
Yeah.
sorry, we don't know what to, thanks for trying to help, but also.
And if you could talk to your kids for next Sunday, like that was my favorite.
You could just stop
and talk to them. I'm like,
and you're right, the teacher or whoever the adult is, and in that setting can make such a difference. Our son had a primary teacher once, and they were learning the articles of faith. Number 1, we believe in God, the eternal Father. And they got that far, and he said, I'm kind of 50-50 on God. And she was just so lovely about it. She said, let's see if maybe you want to, we could talk about it. Maybe you could get to 60-40. And it was just so tender. And he didn't feel othered at all. And I imagine that could have gone a lot of different ways. And so I will always be grateful for that.
Well, just how she shaped it. Like, okay, let's just talk about it some more instead of, feeling appalled. We, one of our sons, he was into Greek literature at the time, and they were talking about Christ, and he goes, so that means that he was the son of God. And he goes, so that means he's a demigod, right? So. And the teacher,
love it.
We're like, well, yeah, but the teacher could not handle it. It was really funny. I wasn't there. Steve was there, but for us, it was just kind of a giggle moment, and because it wasn't typical, this teacher did not engage it like the experience that she had.
Oh, we could probably do have a contest of
I'm sure
who can make people feel awkward more quickly. I mean, sweet home teacher.
And we've had on the flip side of that.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll just tell you about a story. I was the singing person in primary, and my kids were little at the time, and it was a hard day in primary being with them, if that makes sense. So I was
hard. Yeah,
they were behaving in a way that was it was hard for me as a parent. I guess I should say that.
Yeah.
And I would finish with singing time, and I was propping myself up against the wall, probably feeling very defeated. And the primary president, who I really didn't know, we were new in the ward, and she was new in the calling. She gently came over to me and said, I just want you to know, I'm sorry, I'm going to cry, but that we love your children. And throughout her calling and her interactions with our children, and how her attitude towards our children permeated that primary. And she acted as if she showed us that she loved our children in different ways. And she made it a goal. Like when I picked up my kids, I did not get the laundry list. They said they did great. No matter whether and we all know they didn't, but
They did
but they did, you know what I mean? Like it
I
just,
do.
but
Yes.
it also made me feel safe to be able to collaborate with them and to help them find solutions to whatever, or ideas to whatever whatever situations they were facing with them. It just made me, and he was a runner. Yeah, he had a lot
Sometimes
of
these kids do exactly what the rest of us wish we could do. Run. Or say the thing. Do you know what I mean? They're just,
stuff.
yeah.
But it just that it was beautiful, and I so appreciate that. And yeah,
Mm.
so I don't know.
Let's talk about, so I mean, we've talked a little bit about like the kind of the primary age, and a little bit about kind of the youth experience. Michelle, you and I know from professional experience, that there is sort of a, in education, I think they call it the services cliff, that these kids graduate from high school and supports dissolve, they just disappear, in terms of community supports. And let's talk about that with the church, and how difficult it is for these young people to find their place, in our congregations as they get a little bit older.
That's a really good question, because I guess, as you said, talk about the service cliff is very much an issue within the church. Even in the youth programs, for our oldest, it got more and more complicated. I guess for both of them, really. Complicated as they get older, because that the division and their path is so different. The other kids are graduating from high school, they're going on to college, they're, in a few years they're going on missions and choosing a career, and that's not happening with our children's those conversations. And I don't feel, I think we both have felt that a lot of the energy goes towards those who, where their calling an election is not made sure. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Yeah. And so that leaves no place for people with disabilities, I think. And especially after high school, our church is really good about, there's the home teachers, visiting teachers, we have all these leaders in place. There's not just one youth leader, there's a group of youth leaders, and different personalities to integrate. There's lots of people to keep from these kids from falling through the cracks. And when after high school, that kind of disappears, because there just isn't.
Right. Well, so going from young men's to elders quorum, for example, that will be uncomfortable, probably for, we're not going to make an assumption, any
Right.
18-year-old that's not planning to go on a mission. We'll just start with that, but then, we stretch from beyond that into an 18-year-old that doesn't know the Sunday school answers, we could put it that way, or doesn't feel safe. They don't know, they just are not sure that, unfortunately, and I think this calls out church culture a little bit, that what is said is what is intended. So for instance, one thing with with autism, right? They can be, somebody on the autism spectrum can interpret what is said by someone else in a very literal, kind of concrete way. And so they may not pick up on nuance. They may hear, someone may say, I just really love you, and they don't know what to do with that. Or they may say, we love everyone, and then feel confused at when the actions maybe don't match that. So with that kind of little preamble, talk to me about your adult kids. What's it's been like for them?
It's interesting. So our daughter, who has been has been on an interesting path since high school. Did some college, served a mission. She's now kind of back to getting back into the swing of things with college and such. Has attended the singles ward. And when there were activities, sometimes she would invite her brother, her twin brother, and to go to the activities. And God bless her for doing it, because she's the only one that's inviting him. Mm-hmm. She's the only person that's trying to connect him with anything church related. Because nobody from our ward, nobody from the singles ward, and nobody from the church just in general has any contact with him other than like our ministering, folks who come by and do visits and ask and are very kind and wonderful, and that's it. There is no because, like I was talking about before, their interactions at church are not places where they find a lot of value. There really is nothing else that's kind of designed towards, what's their next step? Like you guys were talking about, where, after high school, what is next? Well, there's just kind of this chasm.
Yeah.
We're not really sure what to fill it with, which has led to, basically inactivity. And what do you do with that? I don't know. I mean, that's really, I'm not sure there is an answer to that question yet, other than, kind of what our daughter is doing, which is, occasionally taking him to a singles activity. And I don't know. And those are generally designed for people, not for people with disabilities. Certainly they're more adult. They're more, probably a little more out of reach, for them. And so, yeah, it's even, at least when they're in primary and they're in the young men's or young women's program, there are activities and there's kind of a curriculum or a plan or a program that you can kind of attach them to. But after high school, there really isn't anything, because we're expected to be very self-sufficient at that point. We're expected to kind of drive our own membership at that point. And that they don't necessarily have that capacity. So what do? You ignore them? I don't know. And
I don't know. Is that
the answer?
Sounds like, the answer has been kind of like silence. You can hear it's kind of what you've described as you can kind of hear the crickets.
Yeah,
I think, and I will say, I don't believe that people mean harm.
No. Absolutely not.
I don't believe that we can ever begrudge someone an experience that they haven't had. And and I think people mean well. And as someone who means well, and then what my intentions are go sideways, and I do more harm than good sometimes. We
have difficulty with it, right? Ourselves, that we've been around that
absolutely
2 years. And so how can we expect that of others, right?
Right.
But I do think there's things that we
for improvement. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are some tools and some thoughts that we can always have present in as far as our meetings go, as far as our activities, the board activities and things like that. And we have a bishop now who's just exceptional. And he starts at least I hear that from other leaders. We're not in the bishop in the ward councils, but he starts every planning session with how can we eliminate the barriers to make sure that all are included, and he means that for everyone. So what can we do? What are and for that to always be at the front of people's minds as they create space and they create these activities, and I think is so powerful. And instead of saying, well, assuming they can't participate, or assuming that this is not for them and it's for others, but to say, how can we shape things or provide for those barriers, and what are the barriers that we need to think about? It's really pretty cool.
That's worth repeating again. I mean, so say it again. He said, how can we eliminate
the barriers that prevent everyone from being included?
Okay.
And just having that as the theme of every meeting and having that overarching goal, I think is so powerful. We were just talking about our stake has a real push to have everyone participate in the temple, to go to the temple. And as we know, temple attendance sometimes is not necessarily based on whether you're worthy or not. There are a lot of barriers to going to the temple that have nothing to do with worthiness. But what I have really liked is that the state president and has been thoughtful about other ways that they can participate in the temple experience for those that do have those barriers in place, whatever the barriers.
Yeah.
He had a list of other things. So but I do,
I would love to know more about that. This is so cool. I think that listeners would love to know kind of what is on that list.
Well, I just kind of saw it today. So I mean, a lot of it was just like, you can submit names, you can do your family history, you can support, you can go. It just had a lot of other possibilities. Yeah. You can go clean, you can go, I don't know, what else was on that list?
I didn't see it.
Oh, you didn't see it. But they were there, at least it was a start of, you don't have to submit 1,000 names, you can just submit one name, or you can, I don't know.
I learned that you can submit names for the prayer roll electronically now. So
see how cool is that?
Isn't that cool? Right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that's a way that people can
participate. Exactly.
And just to step back and just say, okay, so let's be creative about this. And there are churches that do have space for adults with disabilities, that have invisible disabilities, and they are successful about it. So I think, and I will say our adult son does attend one of those, a church that provides those activities. They have activities for those with disabilities. They have one of their services is set aside, not exclusively for them, but they know that that's a place where they can find their friends, and that they find those that of their ministry that is welcoming to them. They're thoughtful about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're doing something.
They're doing something.
They have something that's geared specifically towards the folks that are where they don't have that anywhere else, and it's they're trying, whether or not it's the perfect thing or whatever. And therein lies, I think, the key to the people that we've talked about that we've really appreciated, that we've had direct contact with, are those that they really want to find a way to remove barriers, or to provide opportunities, or to work with your children. That desire. It's like the difference between, like, I can recall talking to primary teachers going, okay, well, what do I need to know about your kids? More like, warn me about what's going to happen, versus tell me about your kids because I want to know more about how to engage with them and do cool things. There's a real, it's the same
Attitude.
question, but boy, it's a two totally different, mindsets and approaches, and finding the latter is, it's great. And if you can even go to a different church and find some way where they can find community and a message that is still a good message, then
Yeah.
you take what you can get. And boy, wouldn't it be nice if we had something similar?
Yeah. I mean, it would be
A place where they can
Yeah.
get a little bit of Jesus. So
right. That's what I was thinking when you talked about that. Your oldest, he loves Jesus. Need a little bit. Well, so I mean, Matthew 19:14. Jesus said, "Suffer little children and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven." And this idea of ways that we might be preventing. I mean, I love the way that the bishop has essentially turned that scripture into, broadening it a little, like, yeah, what are the barriers?
I know,
And
right?
let it, and make sure it's not us, that I'm not the barrier to someone feeling safe or knowing that they are loved and that we're excited to participate in worshiping with them, whatever that might look like. And so, yeah, I mean,
Well,
that's,
I think just having like the attitude of we're all in the same place. We all have value. We all value under God's love, right? That we are all children of the Heavenly Father. We are all brothers and sisters, and we all have value. And to always have that in the front of our minds, and that there isn't really in that world, there isn't an other, there isn't
exactly.
one above the other. And I'll just say, sometimes our children and other children get become the point of a service opportunity.
Oh, for sure. Mhm.
Yeah, and that is super uncomfortable,
Mhm.
and really doesn't feel good. So because I'm my niece, my cute niece, Michaela, she had the way she interacts with my older son, like she's so well, both of them, mostly she and Ethan are pretty much the same age, and they've interacted with each other since they were little, and she's just so loving with him, and so well, he's just Ethan, like he just he just she talks with him, she engages with him, she makes him feel like he's whatever he's saying is exciting, and I don't know. So anyway, I told her dad how much I appreciated that, and also told her when she was younger, and she just looked at me really weird and said, "Well, of course," and it's the attitude of, "Well, of course," not that that's not. It's not. He doesn't have. I'm tripping all over my words.
You're doing great. That it's just an assumption that she makes, that of course she wants to be with your son, and doesn't matter anything else beyond that. She loves to be with him, and he loves to be with her. And
Right. Yeah. And, you wish that everyone would have that attitude. And I think Steve referred to it as that magic person that comes in, that you feel, oh my gosh, this person gets it. They connect. They're trying in all these different ways. We don't always have to be a part of the picture or whatever. But that, I think and that doesn't always happen. That isn't a skill that everybody has. And that's okay. I don't have a lot of skills that I can deliver to every situation, but I think if we put that in the mindset that they are God's children, a child of God, that we are to love them, then I think it'll be a little easier.
right. Well, this idea too. You said earlier, Michelle, you talked about burdens, and and you mentioned that word a couple of times, that burdens could feel very heavy. And then there were those that could help lift those burdens. And I just was thinking so much about, we're really taught to share burdens, right? We share them. And so it's not as though I can't help someone else with something that has nothing to do with the way that they help me, right? And in that we bring the capacities we have. Like you were saying, we may or may not have that skill, but there is still something about safe community that we hope our wards can and stakes can be, that would imply there's something just implicit around, oh, this is where we come to share burdens, right? And I think that's what probably really kind of disappears with that, what would be, as these young people move into from adolescence into adulthood. We don't feel that as parents, like that's gone. And our children certainly don't experience that kind of just support and have interest in them anymore. Yeah, that's what I've observed. What do you think in terms of burdens being shared?
Being shared, yeah, I think there's so many moments where people share the load, that have really, well, I think that's why I'm still in it, why I still come to church, because there are people that help share that load. I think the understanding of we all have something that we're carrying, right?
Yeah.
I think, but trying to find, I don't know, what do you think?
What came to mind was that not everyone knows what to do. It's hard to know how to help sometimes, where to step in and how to be that extra kind of support that you're looking for when you go to be a part of a community like the church. And maybe that's one of the disconnects that we find in this whole conversation, is that there are a lot of people who just, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know that there's a disconnect going on, and they don't understand what simple things they could do to make things better for you and for your family, and your connection with that community. And maybe that's our job. Maybe our job is, and hopefully through resources like this podcast and through other opportunities that we have to share our experiences with others, they'll see that. They'll see, oh, I see what's going on with them, and there is a way I can support them, I think, or I want to try. Again, that's sometimes all it comes down to, is somebody's real sincere desire to be that help, that balm, that yeah, support, or whatever you want to call it. Such little things can mean so much. Such little things can bring about such great things. When we think back to all the times that members have really been there for us, it hasn't been grandiose, not huge sacrifices or big things. It's just been the little recognitions that have really meant a lot to us and to our children, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm responding to what you asked or not.
No, I love what you just said. Yeah, keep going, Michelle. It seems like you.
Well, I was thinking about part of one of my calling is in the stake primary right now, and I have the pleasure of going into different presidencies in the wards and helping and supporting them with the challenges that they're having, and really trying to be boots on the ground for that, not just hopefully a source of I don't know, coming up with ideas for whatever their challenges they may be. And I say it's a privilege, because I am witnessing exactly what Steve was talking about, people who are so wanting to lift the burdens and to be there for their support and wanting answers. Like they want to help. They want them to feel happy. They want them to feel that love, and just how they do it in little ways is huge. I guess as a parent, when I look at it and I'm like, if I was their parent, that would make me so happy, and feel that joy.
I love
Yeah.
that. It's the tiny things. It's not programs, and it's not projects. It is simply being maybe present and aware, and um and allowing for variety in God's children.
Yeah, I like that variety. It'd
Well,
be pretty boring if we were all the same, right?
I'll just say it's a good start. I like the whole thing you said about programs. Can we have some of those, please?
Oh, good. Yeah, go right ahead. Get that going. No, I'll be honest, I worry about programs being because those are some of the things that allegiance or like loyalty or devotion to a program, or some of the ways that my kids have been they've been othered because they can't they literally don't have the capacity to participate in the program the way that the program's designed. And so and that's not to say that the program isn't good. It helps so many individuals. And there's maybe not enough flexibility or ways to kind of how do I want to say it? Maybe
Adapt it, or
right, to
yeah.
apply or adapt the program to the needs of the members.
To make it more inclusive. I mean, that's a hot word right now, right? But
Yes.
it's a pretty powerful word.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what we talked about, those barriers. What are the barriers that are preventing for everybody from participating? Or
Well, and is it the programs, or the way
yeah,
that you're interpreting the council around the
or
program?
how it's structured or whatever. But I
Yeah.
think it's also, like we were talking, it's hard for, I remember as a parent, it took me years, right? To let go of we can't do family homecoming like the book says. We can't do primary like the manual says. Like we can't do those things, and that's okay. That's okay. It's okay. Our children will feel God's love in different ways, and it's okay to
Mhm.
not be lockstep with programs.
So let's maybe like start to wrap up with that idea. So if you were to talk to, because we're down the road here, like I'm old.
Yeah.
And
No.
you're not yet, but you're getting there. And
Already.
so, but we're at a different stage of life, and so are our kids in terms of how they connect with the gospel and how they interface with the church. What might you say to someone, to parents who are just at the beginning of this journey with their children? Because I don't know, Michelle, if you would have been able to say it's okay though to do
No.
it at in early days. So could you guys speak to that?
I wish we could go back in time. I think about that time because I think I caused a lot of pain for our family, just with those expectations that and trying so hard to fit, to fit the mold. And I don't know why. But I'm grateful that, Steve's my partner in all this, because he has constantly said, we just want our children to be happy. We just want them to be happy. And what does that mean? And it really, it helped me just to let go of that strict, or that to making sure that all the boxes are checked, that they completed all the things, and it's okay. It's seriously okay. But I wish I could tell my younger self that, and I wish and I wish I could feel that, like be able to take it into my soul. But I think we both have been blessed with having people in our lives that get it, that are on the same journey in some way, but also those who aren't, are on a different journey with children that don't have those challenges, but that are able to laugh with us and to cry with us and to honor the 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 milestones that our children have made, or the celebrations, been able to celebrate with us when Ethan finally said his first word, or I don't know,
Yeah. Oh, I
to
love
try
that.
to find those connections with people,
Yeah.
whatever they may be. And if people can't, find somebody who does. Be okay to say, yeah, I'll find somebody else. And then we've been in a lot of words where we're the only ones, but we've been also lucky to have people that, still do laugh and cry with us. So celebrate. I don't know, what would you say?
Oh, if I could go back and talk to myself, or somebody asked me, who was getting ready to go through a similar situation with their kids, I would say spend a lot of time on yourself, because your kid's fine. Your kid knows more or less who they are. Their experience is going to be whatever it is. It doesn't have to be the experience that you had as a child, right? They don't have to go through the same milestones you went through. They don't have to walk the same paths or have the same experiences. Theirs are theirs. And that's hard from our perspective because, like I said from the beginning, I think we set such sometimes unrealistic expectations, or mistaken expectations, not unrealistic as lofty, but mistaken in that it has to be something like mine. Mine was mine, whatever mine was, and you guys are your guys, and everybody has their own experience with this, and it's learning to kind of be a better observer of our kids and seeing how they experience it and what their experience is, not trying to force them into some particular definition or frame, but just learning to enjoy and experience how where they meet the gospel, or where they meet their church experience, and finding the places where it gives them great value. And then trying to enhance that, try to give them every opportunity you can to enjoy that, to make it more enjoyable. Maybe that's just what it is. Not to make such a burden, because it seems like it's so hard. There's so much stuff to do. But when I look back on the things that I really enjoyed, they weren't the hard things. They were the things where I kind of just let them experience it however they were going to. And I started to realize whatever my concern or disappointment was, oftentimes it was based more in my own unrealistic view of what it should have looked like or what it should have been, as opposed to just enjoying what it was or appreciating it for what it was. So that's the advice I would give myself. They're not you. As much as you'd like them to be or think they are, they're not you. They are they, and they have their lives and their own experiences, and they will meet the church how they meet the church, however that is. And you as a parent, do your best to try and make that as varied as possible so that they can find the places where they'll connect. But don't worry so much about the places where they don't, because like Michelle said, give yourself a break, relax. It's okay if they don't do this one activity, or if they don't connect on the same level you did, or whatever else. It's all right. Whatever their experience is theirs, and they'll get out of it whatever the Lord wants them to get out of it, and that's one thing that we haven't really kind of addressed yet. And maybe we should, as part of kind of wrapping up, is that the Lord has a role in this as well. And I think oftentimes we might over focus on our input, and there is I think a role that our Father in Heaven plays, and we should involve that as much as we can. We should be asking for help. We should be looking for the times where we know there has been help, that wonderful person has been sent to help our child, and know that there's a Father in Heaven who loves them as much as anyone else, and they have the same rights to the same interventions and influences from the spirit as anybody else does. And to look for that and to ask for it and try and make that as much a part of their lives as anybody's. Does that make sense?
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, what you both said kind of reminded me of when I finally learned to put away the checklists. I think Michelle, you used that term, right? And all the shoulds, all the lists of like, this is how this is done. I realized that that those actually interfered with my ability to interact with the spirit, with the Holy Ghost, because I could just do my list and then I didn't ask for guidance or I didn't inquire as much. I sort of like, well, I got my good list, and they're good lists, and they may or may not be exactly what I need or my child needs in that moment. And by being a little over dependent on um, those expectations, that would be a way that that I created my own barrier to experiencing the guidance of the spirit and feeling. I'm going to speak to this and assume that you've had very similar experiences, feeling just a portion, and any parent has this experience. I'm feeling just a portion of God's love for these children that are on loan to us, right, is so overwhelming. And Steve, you talked about joy, and I just imagine like the joy that Christ has in each of us, and especially in I think there's something really unique and beautiful about neurodivergence, and I think there's I can't wait to learn more about it, I guess, on the sort of the other side. I hope there's a class on that or something, like filling in the rest of us. But I think there's something really beautiful there. And when we eliminate the barriers, sometimes the ones we create for ourselves, that we get to experience more of that joy that he feels around them.
Yeah, I think what some of my most powerful spiritual experiences have been around them, like you just talked about, like just feeling God's love for them. And and my role in that, which is more of a support role, more than, and they're the ones in the forefront, right? But also thinking about the promises that are given to us. I think there's so much attention on the healing part and why isn't my child healed or whatever. But I think what's helped me is to say, well, that's not what is promised to me. What is promised to me is the peace and the love and the joy that the gospel brings, and what the plan brings. And knowing that's what I desire for my children, is that they know that, first of all, that we love them no matter what, and that we're here for them, but also that God loves them and there is a higher power that's looking over them and thinks that they're amazing. And I'm truly grateful for that. It gets me through the day, through the years.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any last thoughts in terms of like, oh, and what about anything else you want to include? You guys have so much to provide for those who are listening.
It's been good for us. Just Steve and I talked about it, like it's been healing for us. I'm not going to lie, this subject's pretty raw, but mostly because it's concerning people we adore. So we appreciate the opportunity. That's been good for us to like put it all together, I guess, and grateful for you for giving us this opportunity and to, be there on this journey with us, holding our hands through it and giving us.
We do have some laughs, don't we?
We do. And to like be able to laugh and giggle about it. It's pretty funny.
And you asked if anybody had ever asked us, or if they ever did ask us, if anyone ever wanted to talk about the experience, their own experience, or wanted to ask us about ours. I would, it would be a great opportunity. to talk, to connect with other people if they ever wanted to reach out. I mean, I'm sure we would
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we can make
love
sure
that
that
opportunity.
information is available. That is very generous. This is, I mean, Michelle, I guess I want to ask one last thing. Statistically, I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but maybe you do. Numbers of, do you know the statistics around the increase in numbers around neurodivergence, neurodiversity?
It changes all the time, and it depends because it's such an umbrella
Yeah.
definition. It depends on how you define it. And I
Sure.
think which each study and each research push, they're finding more and more connections between things. I currently, like you said, I have been a special ed teacher forever, but right now I'm currently focused on those who are blind with low vision, and there are some correlations between blind and low vision and those who are neurodivergent. So even that's like another window. So it's hard to really define. I hear lots of different, but the numbers are
Really
increasing.
good point.
I think it's more, and I do think a part of it is awareness, but it's also that I interact with a lot of my caseload are those that are significantly have significant challenges, and so because we have more resources out there for health reasons, for health. I'm not saying it right, but anyway, so there's just, I think there's just more. There's just more for all different kinds of reasons. But
well, and you're right. The definition changes day to day. Even just with autism, though, I believe the last statistic I remember hearing was almost a third.
Yeah, I've heard 1 out of 50, or not 1 out of 50, 50%. Was it? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big number. Yes,
It's a big number, and
this
it
is an
depends on
incredibly relevant subject, I guess, is what I'm getting at. That what you have talked about tonight is not just for a little tiny slice of the population. This is real, and it's something that families feel isolated around, and it's hard to share burdens and to eliminate barriers when we are in silos. And so just bringing out that awareness, like you said, I think is essential if the programs that someday Steve envisions are to become a reality.
I can dream. I can
Watch
dream.
out, buddy. Watch out. No, just this idea that, I guess I'll wrap this with this idea. I was talking to someone recently who said they'd received some counsel from their stake president that said, do not be in any relationship in which you are not treated as a child, in this case, daughter of God. And I was thinking about that with your oldest, that right this minute, being in a relationship with coming to church with you on Sunday, it's not, he doesn't feel it. He can't quite, have the amount of Jesus that he can get and by visiting this other congregation, and that is just fine. We are all his precious children, and fearing that anything can get in the way of our children feeling that, or even the two of you feeling that, or anyone feeling that, I hope that can motivate us all a little bit to maybe open our eyes and look around a bit, and see that there's much more complexity and nuance and beauty than we had assumed.
I love that. Thank you.
Thanks to both of you. We really appreciate it. Listeners, thank you for joining us for this episode of Listen, Learn, and Love with Michelle and Steve Shaw.